disappointment comes from our high expectations. And our high expectations are products of our mind and nothing else. It's in everything, right? You go somewhere and you expect that and you don't get it and you feel disappointed. But that place has nothing to do with your expectations. The same as people. They don't have to please our expectations. Yeah, it's our product. So that's why the only thing I can really advise is be conscious about your culture and the society you live in. Because if your culture is something, but you live in a society which is different, you might want to adjust your style because this is the world you live in. And I mean, you're the guest here.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kornelia Zegiel. I'm the leader of Global Women Club in Frankfurt. For those who are new here, this channel is mostly about the leadership and personal growth. If you want to reach out to the next level, please stay tuned because I highly believe those videos and interviews will inspire you to transform and grow. Hello everyone, welcome in our next episode with Elena Lyubchich. As you maybe remember, she was in our first part when we talk about the trends and finance. But this time, Elena is going to tap with me a little bit more regarding the personal finance and bust the taboo in terms of relationship and how to deal with the money with our partners. So, Elena, I'm very happy and delighted to have you here in our next episode.
Thank you so much, Kornelia. It's really nice to catch up again and to see, because it's always been a year, which is quite unbelievable, to be honest. But yeah, things have changed, and it's investments, same as markets, same as life is going and changing. And while we make plans, things are happening and life is happening. So it's great that we could catch up again and also maybe open up a little bit the topic, because personal finance is just part of that. But there is much more than just personal, one person's finance. Yeah.
Regarding the finance, especially right now, what is happening, crisis part. And let's maybe start from this aspect, maybe common in the relationship from the also women perspective, where that one is treated as a taboo, because most of the cases, sometimes the women, they are landing in the situation that, the relationship is not running well. There needs to happen in terms of splitting. And then the money is the issue. Or is a not secret, money is creating the friction and conflict. So how to deal with that and how to start opening that discussion, not be nitty-gritty, you know what I mean?
I mean, to be honest, I started all of that back then because I heard some stories of the women being completely unprotected, being completely dependent on men. It's not about being, dependent on unprotected in general, because of course we believe that there is love and all of this, but there is always the element of feeling safe and making sure that we're protected from different situations, because it doesn't have to happen that divorce happens. Maybe something happens to the one making money, the tragedy, right? So it doesn't really need to be connected with that. So it's extremely important to make sure that there is some sort of financial protection available. You don't need to use it. And I don't like those words like, I keep it for the bad day or rainy day, they call, right? You can just call it, it's emergency fund. That's good enough. It's, I think, because emergency could be that your washing machine is broken, or your car, or your PC and things like that. It doesn't have to be the tragedy, but it can be still quite an amount of money you might need. And regarding the taboo, to be honest, when I was thinking about it, I was just asking myself, why is that a taboo? I mean, really? Because we know it all, right? And my general feeling, as well as the bit of research I've done, it's related because, how many topics are the taboos and how many topics we just recently started to talk about? We recently started to talk about pay gap. We very recently started to talk about diversity and inclusion. very recently about female leadership and the quotas which we would like to have on the boards of directors and stuff. It's maybe 10 years, 15 years, no more. Haven't really discussed before. Same as it's partially it's etiquette, because we don't really talk about politics or health, or right, or what else we don't talk, religion, right? Because it makes people feel uncomfortable. In any case, if you're very rich, you might think like, okay, those people are my friends because I'm very rich. Or if you're very poor, it makes yourself uncomfortable to be among people who are more successful than you. But again, what is success, right? Some people might not be super rich, but they are extremely happy, extremely successful in what they're doing, and they're fine. They are good in their life. They don't need to have billions. Some people haven't the billions, but they're extremely unhappy because they never had a chance to make a family, right? So since those topics either make us feel superior or opposite, a little bit down or a little bit unhappy, I think that's why historically those topics are not really being discussed. However, I really believe it needs to change, but not in a revolutionary way, like let's all talk about money from today, in a very normal way. For example, I've noticed that in Prague, where I live, among the expats, my friends, we usually ask each other how much you pay for the apartment, because you want to make sure your rent is fair. And it's kind of very normal thing, I would say, to say, hey, how much is your apartment, or how much is your mortgage, or what is the interest rate on your mortgage? Because this is something which we all experience at some point. And there is, in my opinion, nothing wrong to ask, hey, what is your interest rate in the bank, for example? So we can start from those small little things, because why is that important? If you open up...
Sorry, like a benchmark, this is what you are trying to say.
Exactly. It's a benchmark. For example, if I learn from my friend who's doing similar job that the person makes, let's say, double, I'm asking myself a question. Am I underpaid, or are they very lucky? Right? If I'm knowing that I'm paying double of the rent than my friend in the similar part of the city, I'm asking myself, who is the one, less lucky or maybe more lucky, or why? And it's nothing to do with being envious or anything. It's, because it's asymmetry of information we're having. It's a very good economic terms, asymmetry of information. You know more than me. I know more than you. If I'm going, it was a very good book, actually, Freakonomics, about behavioral finances and behavioral economics. There was an example that you as a woman might go to the garage to change your tires. And since they see you're a woman and you probably don't know, they might charge you more because they assume you know a little less, which doesn't have to be a case. The same with the asymmetry of information related to rent, related to salaries. That's why usually you don't know salary of your colleague, which is, again, in a way, it is ethical not to discuss it. On the other hand, if you one day you find out you're paid half of what your male colleague is paid, it's an issue, right? That's why if you take, for example, Scandinavian countries, they have list on it. Basically, it's transparent, right? Because they want society to feel comfortable and fair. In a more capitalistic world like we have in continental Europe, it's not that common, but at the same time, again, it's important that we don't have this asymmetry. It's important that we keep ourselves up to date with the trends. That's why tools like Glassdoor are so popular, and people use it because sometimes when you apply for the job, you don't really know how much to ask, right? You don't want to ask for too much, which is maybe the reason they reject you, but you don't want to be underpaid because then it creates a lot of tension at some point, right? So it needs to be changed, but I think it needs to be changed very step by step, not in a revolutionary way, because people are still a little bit uncomfortable talking. But for example, with my very, very close friend, we talk about our finance, our personal finance, because we also discuss where to invest, what are the options, what do you think is gonna, work out better than previous year, and we share a lot in terms of how much do you spend for this, and what is your budget for that, or how do you deal with this? Again, no one is judging, or it's not about this. It's about to make sure I'm doing the right things, to make sure I avoid asymmetry to make sure I'm not being, fooled by whomever it is. And I think it's good. And in general, we start to be more and more open about the things, about the problems. And I think it's good. It's a good turn of the society.
Mm-hmm.
And in the partnership, same. If you don't discuss your finance from the very beginning, you might end up with a very different expectations. Yeah, because for example, one of the partners, they expected, again, I don't want to say men and women because it's very different in different couples, but let's say one partner expected to spend, 3 years in maternity leave, and the other partner didn't count with that, right? Mm-hmm. Or somebody expects to have all the bills 50-50, and the other partner doesn't really, appreciate it. They want to have it in a way differently. Mm-hmm. And it's so important to discuss it from the very, very beginning and agree what is the model we want to have.
Elena, before we move to the discussion between couples, how to set the rules, let's maybe summarize it, the first element which you mentioned, because you emphasize very important thing, which I want to summarize it from our audience. If we're talking about the finance generally and personal finance, you talk about the benchmarking from the cost perspective, yeah? Everything which we are paying from consumer from the cost perspective. So that's why that benchmark is very important, isn't it? To know where I'm landing, yeah?
Of course, yeah. I think here is very much individual, right? It's very individual. But again, I don't see anything wrong to share what is my rent with my friends.
Uh-huh.
What is the problem there? And because they could make a feeling or make an idea of, if I move here, then probably is my average rent. That means they can plan their budget. At the same time, if, for example, I'm sometimes thinking maybe to change an apartment, I'm kind of investigating, guys, how much is the average, because I want to know how much it's going to affect my budget. And again, it's nothing to do in interfering into someone's budget. Or again, of course, I'm not going to ask just, random person on the street. But of course, also the same way I'm asking, how do you like this part of the city? Do you enjoy living here? Is that comfortable? It's exactly the same question, because it's just you investigate of how you're going to feel if you make this step. And more information you have today, you have less surprises, right?
Yes, absolutely. I like your statement when you mention investigate and measure, because once we can measure, we can influence it and we can make a difference if we're talking about the investment part or managing our money. Let's move then to the next part, which you mentioned about the relationship. What you as a financial coach would you like to advise in that area, because it's a lot of coming from the mindset thing, like you mentioned. What would be the way to emphasize that one, and like I said, because I think we should also look at from the perspective, what is our personal relationship with the money, how I see money as a devil or really like a tool. So how to emphasize that into the relationship which we have with our partners. And later on, my next question would be, what will be the model which you want to highly recommend, which you are already recommending to your clients?
I think there are 2 or maybe even 3 parts here. First, we need to understand it's my own model, not coming from Stanford or Harvard. I believe there are 2 things which affect our, I wouldn't even say relationship with money, because this is something different. This is more about beliefs and education of growing and that part. But how do we want money to be introduced in our families or partnerships? I think there are 2 elements. It's cultural, and coming from the family.
Okay, can you explore those one by one?
Because cultural is which culture you come from, right? If you come from very Eastern world, most probably man is the one making money, and you're the one probably not making money or making it as your hobby, and you're taking care of the kids. And we're not talking about, it's not modern. Look at the Middle East world. It is still like that, right? Eastern Europe, quite often still somewhere we could see that model. When we talk about Western world, women often feel even uncomfortable and how should I say, very uncomfortable when when man is covering the bill, for example, in the restaurant, and they really feel like I can pay my bills myself. And there is not right or wrong, or it's just the cultural model we are growing up in. And second one is the family. In the family, you could have different models. All money together, like it was in my family. We all knew that our parents put money in one wallet and it is there, hidden in there. We all knew what it is. I mean, kids, me and my brother, we knew. And it was just one place. Some families, they have completely separate budget the way they don't even know how much the partner makes, which for me is very weird, to be very honest. Second is that men and women agree that, or partners agree, look, I'm covering this junk, I'm covering, let's say, the mortgage and everything related to the house, and you cover the kids and the groceries. Fair enough. Etc., etc., etc. So whatever you grew up feels normal to you, right? And grew up with, I mean. And those two things are parts of our expectations related to the money. So if I start my relationship and I'm, let's say, from the very much Eastern world, I expect that man covers everything, but I also expect myself not to be, for example, hitting for very high positions at work because I want to make sure that my house is taken care of. Whilst vice versa, in the Western society, could be very normal that man is taking the maternity leave or paternity leave, they call it, because, for example, he makes less, or women have in a very high position, so she doesn't want to give up her career. And those two things are extremely important to keep in mind, and even more important to discuss from the very beginning, because our disappointment comes from our high expectations. And our high expectations are products of our mind and nothing else. It's in everything, right? You go somewhere and you expect that and you don't get it and you feel disappointed. But that place has nothing to do with your expectations. The same as people. They don't have to please our expectations. Yeah, it's our product. So that's why the only thing I can really advise is be conscious about your culture and the society you live in. Because if your culture is something, but you live in a society which is different, you might want to adjust your style because this is the world you live in. And I mean, you're the guest here. Or at the same time, if you're also conscious with whom you are, who is your partner, and he might be very different or she, then you can also adjust your expectations because you probably cannot expect from, let's say, I mean, I'll be a bit generalistic, of course, but if I say from Scandinavian men, I wouldn't expect that he would be, expecting me to sit at home and take care of the babies and just don't work and stuff like that. Whilst if I go to the Middle East and I say, hey, look, I want to make my career, probably the gentleman will be, that's not what I expected. And this is so important to keep it in mind. And once you are conscious about yourself, we discussed consciousness so much last time about your culture, then it comes to the discussion, right? And to making sure that you agree there is a way you have to create some point. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, or most of the time it is uncomfortable, but it has to be covered because it's better you cover it today and maybe realize you are not made for each other before you have 3 kids and mortgage. And then regarding the model, there is no right or wrong model. There are many models. And it's purely up to you. You might agree. I know the couple, amazing couple, my very good friends. They have one account and both salaries go on one account and they just have 2 cards and they don't count. It just goes one way and they're super happy. And their philosophy is, why would I make plan B if I trust him or her? Mm-hmm. I don't need plan B. I don't need my own savings because if I start to make plan B, I am unconsciously, that means that I don't trust this person anymore. And it will affect my marriage because I start to be a bit of, careful here and there. Why would I do if I trust that guy? We are together for 20 years. Fair enough. Some people might say, you know what? I feel more safe if I have my own money. I want to have my own bank account. I want to make sure I have my own savings. I trust you. I love you. But it makes me, feel much better. Fair enough too. Then you might agree that you have, for example, as I mentioned, someone covers bigger part, someone covers smaller part, or where your interest is. For example, usually for men will be the house, right? Because he can repair, he knows how much things cost. While for female, that would be maybe the kids or kindergarten, things like that. Again, I'm talking a little bit too generalistic, but just to give you a feeling. Of course, it depends. You agree. It could be that you put percentage of your salaries together. For example, you agree 50% of each salaries goes to the common account, and then the rest stays. I mean, it's your money. You do what you want.
Yeah.
Or there could be the amount as well, but amount might be a little unfair, because if one of the partners makes much more, then it's, let's say, they give 90% of their money, and it's a little unfair. So again, it comes to the agreement. The same with the investment. Yeah, you agree. Do you want to invest together? Because you can make a family account and you can invest everything together. Or you say, look, it's my pension, it's your pension, it's your loan. I don't want to deal with your loan. You want a Porsche? Get it, but for your own money. I don't want to pay for your Porsche, right? And things like that. So you really, there are pluses and minuses in both. Usually what comes to the plus with a common budget is a trust. Because if you see, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to hide, right? I don't mind if you see the transaction and it's sometimes it doesn't really call like Tesco. Sometimes it's called blah, blah. And even I sometimes wonder what's that, because they don't call really the shop the way it's called. But if you have nothing to hide, you don't worry, right? But if there is not such trust, or maybe there is different education and upbringing processes behind, then you might look into the different models. The only important thing is to really discuss at the beginning and stick to that model. If you share everything, if you put it together, you don't hide your bonus, because it's even called, there is a term, I loved it so much, financial infidelity.
Okay, true. Yeah.
It means we agree, we have common budget, and we put all our money together. I cannot find out in 5 years that you are hiding your bonus, because obviously the first thought was, why? Why did you do that? Did you do something wrong with that? Or the same with if you have increase of the salary, it's difficult to find out, right? And maybe there is a huge increase and those money goes somewhere. Then maybe it's better to agree on the model that we put parts, but parts belongs to us, because then again, it creates trust. But there is no right or wrong model. It's just there are pluses and minuses of each, especially if there are very different spending habits. It might be good to think a bit separately, because again, if one of is having very expensive hobby, and the other one doesn't, or one is shopaholic, the other one is not. One is, prefers very expensive good restaurants or expensive vacations. The other one does not. It might create a tension. It might create the feeling. That's why, for example, for me personally, I don't like 50-50 model, because there is always a moment when one of the people or both think they contribute more. There is always that moment when it comes and you're like, actually, I'm paying a little more. And both of them think the same, right? And then it comes to the moment, okay, let's calculate everything. And then it feels so weird when you really calculate groceries, who made it last time, or you calculate, of course, when it comes to bigger purchases, like a car or TV, it makes sense. But I don't want to count each and every grocery, shop. For me, it's just not what love is about. Then there is a moment with a marriage contract. Yeah. And actually marriage contracts often can be, depending on the country, it can even be signed with like during the marriage. So it doesn't have to be the very beginning. But if you started with something, but then you feel like things are not really going the way you think it should, there is a marriage contract too, when you can make sure that your debts are your debts, my debts are my debts, your expensive hobby is yours, and you don't have to separate everything, but there is a general feeling of, if the guy, let's say something happens, you're not carrying his debts afterwards, and those elements are also very important. And there is a good book which I recommend to everyone. It's called Millionaire Next Door. It's an American book, but in Europe, you could take elements of that, not maybe everything, but a lot of things. And basically, the guy explains, the author, who are the millionaires. And those are not the shiny Armani, Gucci people we usually think they are, but usually those are people who have a smaller business, and the business which doesn't necessarily need a lot of representation. For example, if you're advocate, you of course have to dress up and have a car of the certain level. But if, let's say, he was given example, the guy was having business related to garbage cleaning on the streets, you don't have to have Gucci suit for that. And that's how, because your lifestyle doesn't eat your income, that's how the millions are being built. And he has many factors of how millionaires become millionaire. And he said that spouse and the well-abroad kids are an extremely important factors, because if your spouse is aligned with you, if you both agree that this is how we spend our money, this is how we are, we those are the level of vacations we're having, this is frequency of vacations we're having, this is the house we would like to have. And if you're aligned, spouse is one of the most important factors in your financial stability, in your financial freedom, and those kind of goals related to finance. Because if you're not aligned, obviously there might be, first of all, tension, and second of all, somebody might be disappearing because someone is more, prefers to live today, and some people, they prefer to, like a marshmallow test, they prefer to live in a little bit further away, but better.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. I love what you just mentioned about assessment, really at the beginning. What are my needs? What is my style? Where I want to go? And, there is also one phrase saying that you write the contract before the war started, which is maybe brutal in some sense, but it's kind of confirmation, and we are not landing in a bad position at the end. Elena, what if the rules has changed during the way? And do you agree? It's also okay if they change. Yeah, you might not change the split forever, because life is changing. Kids are growing, or we having new kids moving to different countries. So the rules which we agree upon might change. Yeah.
Of course. For example, might happen that one of the partners changed the job.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much possible. Sometimes you change the job with a lower income because of career change. Let's say you're a financier whole your life and you decided to open your business. Could happen that for some time you're not only not bringing the money home, but you're also spending more. And it's very often you hear those stories that businessmen, when they started their business, they were in a deep minus, and their partners were there for them. And this is again about the trust. If I really know my partner is like that, he's great, he just needs a bit of time, I'm more than fine with that, because I know it's an investment into the future. If I know that he's talented, he's working, he's hardworking, he has a great idea, and it is almost there, I don't mind to be the one providing to the family for some time, just because he is, his focus is somewhere else. At the same time, if you have a partner who is just talking and nothing is changing, you have this sort of people who are, complaining, just talking, and nothing is happening. And you meet them in a year or 2 or 3, and they're still complaining. Mm-hmm. They're still bad boss, bad job, bad whatever. And you're like, well, man, I guess probably the problem is not with them. Yeah. So of course you also see with whom you are. And the same with the kids. Maybe you never planned the kids, but it happened. And you're like, oops, okay, well, let's keep them, right? I mean, things happen. Of course, your general budget is changing. Of course, your budget is slightly different because you have a third person in your family. Yeah, which, I mean, kids are expensive. We all know. Maybe you need a car because you never had it, right? Before you didn't need it. Now you probably need a car. Stuff like this. It's so important to, there is a plan in anything, and then we go agile. Yeah, so we go agile like in business. We don't say, okay, now we're together 50 years and let's plan for the 50 years. I mean, probably not going to happen, or it might happen very differently. Or as you said, we might change the country. Yeah, and sometimes happens quite often as well. One of the partners get a job, and another one might not even have how it is called, permission, like work permission yet, because of all the laws. And the other one is completely dependent. But again, if you know this is your investment into the future, okay, I might not work for a year because of the paperwork, but I trust my partner, and I know that meanwhile I can do many other things, taking care of home. Maybe we need to do the repair. Maybe we have kids. Maybe we have a lot of paperwork to take care of, right? Again, it's all about the agreement, and it's all about, maybe you might even have like a financial days, or financial, like once a month or once a 3 months. You can sit and discuss. Let's look at our expenses. Let's look where it didn't go as per the plan, because we all need to have financial plan. The same as in personal finance, the same in the family finance. There should be a plan, because there is always big purchase to be done. There is always some sort of investment. There are pensions which are coming, no matter if you're in the couple or you're not, right? Pension is coming. And the financial plan of the family is as important as a personal problem. You might not have a personal anymore, right? After you have a family one, and I mean, to be able to be in the plan or to stick to the plan, you need to take some checkup, and once or twice a year, or maybe even more important, you might sit and discuss, okay, what are our financial goals for the next year? And I know my personal mentor, she was telling me that in January, every year, she and her husband, they sit together and say, what is our financial plan for this year? Where else we can invest? What else we can do to increase our income? And I was like, oh my God, I love it. So on 1st of January, instead of going to visit, okay, the 2nd of January, usually 1st of January, we just sleep. But they sit together every year, and they've been married probably for like 20 years or 30 years probably. And they're like, we're doing it every year. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
Maybe that's awesome. They're married.
Yeah. Some people might be laughing, but I think it's fair even to compare it like running the company. Of course, there is a love, there is a feeling. But if there is no fundaments, to have a funds, those feelings, the everything will die, and the brutal life will come to the surface. And then once again, we need to come back to this approach which you just highlighted, and which you are educating your clients, like having a plan, having a goal, because it's strictly related. Goals as individuals, goals as a financial plan. And I really love what you are saying. That's why I want to tap more into it. Elena, what you would recommend for the ones who want to start leaning into it a little bit more and be really on top of that? What will be like 2-3 steps which you would say, okay, this is the assessment which you should start. Make sure you did that, and then it's giving you kind of direction where the work needs to happen. Is it more mental thing? Is it more discussion? How to give that kind of plan, for the action.
You mean the couple?
Yeah, in the couple, yes.
Couple. I think it all starts from taking responsibility.
Okay.
I mean, we're not in the kindergarten. We don't have, parents to take care of us and give us the pocket money. We are here, and we're adults, and we're growing up. I mean, it sounds probably weird to anyone, or at least for me, I still can't believe it. But I'm a grown-up person, and everything depends on me. And while taking this responsibility, and there are many people who are still a bit like infant in a way, and there are a lot of psychological things behind, because people don't want to grow up. because it is scary. I mean, we could see life is difficult and scary, especially during the last 2 years. We went through a lot of stuff. But at the same time, if you look at that from different perspective, you were saying, when I grow up, I'll be this. And now you could say, now is the moment. I can have anything I want in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And if you take this, that stage of your life, you take it from the perspective, wow, now, yes, I'm responsible for that. But that means I can have anything I want. And that means I can achieve anything I want. So if you start from responsibility and holding yourself accountable for that, this is where it starts. So if I say, yes, love is love, it's amazing, but love is chemistry. And usually chemistry is a little bit higher at the beginning, and then it goes to the normal level. We all know that. And what we have afterwards is a respect, is alignment, is still love, but it's already a little different, right? But if we don't build throughout those first, usually 3 years, if we don't build the basics, if we don't build the fundamentals, probably when love, which is chemistry, is gone, everything is gone, right? So that's why building the trust, building the open discussion, building the everything related to that, again, toward the money, not only toward the money, this is the basic. This is where you start accepting the fact and starting talking. Then of course, it comes to how do you build your money relationship, as we discuss, which model do you discuss? And again, I mean, it's a bit about a compromise, but compromise is actually not as good word, right? Because compromise is usually when one of the partners a little bit, give up something. That's why it's maybe better to say fair discussion and fair alignment, that we really do feel comfortable with what we discussed. And not just because, oh, okay, fine, well, okay, I can live with that. No, because then in a year or two, you'll get angry at yourself, you get angry at your partner, you'll have a lot of this, toxic feelings, and you don't want to have it. That's why compromise is never good, yeah, because then it's a long-term bomb in a way, yeah, it will blow at some point, but you don't want it. So then it comes to the budgeting, of course. So then you really count how much you have, what you want, you put the goals. What are your goals? Is that an apartment? You want to have your own apartment, or maybe you want to have a house because now you already have an apartment, but you want to have it bigger. And COVID has changed our preferences quite a lot. I mean, I have a feeling that it comes back, but in general, we usually prefer to have a bigger apartments now because we want to have our workstation, we want to have our sleep place separately from that and stuff like this. And you discuss and talk and talk and talk. Communication is the key. Communication is everything in life, right? In work and in the relationship. And then you put budget together. Then you track your spending, as always. Yeah, you make sure you understand how much you spend and for what you spend. Then you see if there is anything which you can cut. Again, nothing important, but more like, trash, which you spend just because you have the subscription, or you just got used to, I don't know, have a lunch outside, or whatever. It might be those guilty pleasures / unnecessary spendings. Everyone has it. And usually we try to cut them by, 50%, of course, better, more. You might also revisit some of the bills. Yeah. I mean, now I remember last year I was saying that utilities bills, you might revisit, maybe it will go down. Well, probably it won't for at least this year or maybe next one. But there are maybe some things, maybe you could say, we don't need car. I mean, we do have it because of, twice a month we go somewhere, but if you do math, maybe it's better to rent a car and sell this one. Anything can be. You just kind of assess, like if you would do the audit of your company, right? Mm-hmm. You assess everything. You assess the things which you need, which you don't need, which you can sell, or maybe you need to buy because you need to buy. I mean, we need to buy stuff. Mm-hmm. And then it comes to the financial planning. Okay, what do we want to achieve, right? I kind of started with this, but I mean, it goes from both sides. What is our goal? Do we have any particular goal that we really want to buy something big, or we just, we don't need right now anything in particular, but that might be the future college for our kids, or we want our kids to study abroad, or that might be, support of the parents as well at some point it comes. And then you just plan and agree, and then you build the financial plan or investment plan, most probably, because if you talk about in 15 or 20 years, you can just save. We all see the inflation right now.
Mhm.
You can't save. I mean, in 15 years, you'll get zero. So then it comes to the choosing of the strategy, which is a very, very separated topic, because there's investment planning, investment strategies, which is, of course, as important as the pure financial planning as well.
Awesome. Elena, thank you. Thank you very much for bringing all these tips and how to approach it, because, like you said, it's better to plan. It's good to know where we are standing, so those you can measure and control. Otherwise,
exactly. Like in business, you can control things you can measure.
Yeah.
It starts from service, from measuring, from understanding, from discussing, right? We always gather the data first. And after we gather the data, we can analyze the data, and then we can action the data. But we can't action before we actually know what we have.
Yes, I know you're a very big fan of transparency, openness, and like you said, there is no one common strategy which you can apply for everybody everywhere. Is the matter of flexibility. But I'm very glad you highlighted the key elements, which are the fundamentals for relationship and money relationship, and also how to approach that one in the relationship.
Maybe also recommend on top, now YouTube is like a university. You can anything from YouTube, and there are thousands of blogs related to financial literacy, related to even I like things related to books. So like you have many books about finances, and there are short videos, like 10 minutes video about what are the main points or takeaways of this book. And I often listen, because I'm like, okay, does it worth to read it? Because maybe it's just the same thing over and over again. And there are, and sometimes I listen like, oh, okay, that's good, I need to read this one, right? But I save my time by not reading something which is more than obvious, But there are many as well, many topics related to the couple finances. And you can just, as well, if two of you can't really decide, you're like, hey, let's Google what are the options, I mean, nowadays we Google everything. But there are really, I saw many interesting articles about even couples share. So it's not only the theory, but also people share. And I saw, for example, the couple was saying that we put 80% of what we make together, and 20 we keep for our whatever hobbies. I don't want to ask my husband for nails or these small things which is a little embarrassing to ask. So they keep 20% of their income for themselves, for kind of the hobby things and smaller purchases, and the rest they put together. And they said, man, we're together for 20 years, we're super happy, we never had a single conflict about our money. And some people were saying, no, we want to have separately. I don't want to, be responsible for his inappropriate actions related to debts, or irresponsible, maybe it's better to say, not inappropriate. But at the same time, some people say we put it together, as I had my friends. And you might also, there is this new term called watchfulness, which I like a lot. When you see things and aha, it exists. Yesterday I was on the exhibition with Buddha, and there are different Buddhas across the world, and you're like, wow, I mean, those things exist. And it's exactly the same. More you know, more you discover, more things you have in your head, because before we knew altogether or 50-50. I mean, there are things in between, and more you research before you make decision, most probably better decisions gonna be. And again, it's about as well how much you care, because if you spend your time researching, if you spend your time discussing, that probably means you really care and you really want to make the things right, because this partner is so important to you. You don't want to lose him because of sorry to say, stupid money, right? Because love is more important. So that's why you better spend some time, as with anything, and make one decision, which is, I mean, it might change, as you mentioned. Of course, life is happening, things are changing, but yeah, we assess it from the beginning.
No, it's awesome. And then, like you mentioned, you are exchanging with your friends this kind of model. But I think we should also be kind of braver. You know, one tip which maybe our audience could take it. Start talking about it. You know, what kind of model you have instead of where you go for holidays, which place. So maybe that part will be kind of encouraging in terms of, like you mentioned, the changes. To make the changes, we need to be mindful about them. This is one thing. And the second one is start talking about them instead of making a revolution. So maybe one of them, which we could implement, start researching in our inner circle just to find out, especially for the ones who are successful, you know, money, relationship, stuff like this. So to discover. So that's why I pull you into that discussion today.
Yeah. To be honest, maybe 2 months ago, I saw there is a group like Expats in Prague, or some women expats in Prague, doesn't really matter. And there was someone posting saying, hey, look, you know what? I read an article that expats make that amount in. Is that true? Can you share your income? And I was like, no one's going to do that. You can't believe how many comments were there. There were just very few comments saying, hey, you know, it's inappropriate to ask this type of questions. There were so many people sharing. And I read that all and I was like, wow, how much do we change? I mean, of course, it comes to the community, because in the community, you're a little bit, where is Facebook? I mean, it's like anyone can read it. And you're like, wow, because then there were comments like, I didn't know I'm so much underpaid. And there were comments, oh, wow, I'm actually not bad. I could complain, but I should not have to. And, you know, and I remember my first comment was like, it's going to be 0 comments. No share. I was like, man, are you serious asking those things? I mean, you have those stigma in your head. You won't believe there was an enormous amount of comments. And I was like, okay, we really shift our society. We do change in our society. Because if you think, I mean, before, again, talking about diversity and inclusion, 10 years ago was no word of inclusion. It didn't exist. I mean, it exists in very developed part of the world, definitely not in Eastern Europe. Now, I mean, if I look at my team or in my company, we probably have like, they were saying 150 nationalities, like a huge amount. It doesn't really matter. Many nationalities. And it feels so normal that most of the people say, I couldn't work in the homogeneous society anymore. I want to have foreigners around me because it feels so good. But someone started 10, 15, I don't know how many years ago. Someone was the first one to say, let's hire that one. Let's hire this one. Let's bring this topic. Let's discuss it. Let's share. And now for us, it's more than normal. The same with the voting rights, the same with the first prime minister being this or that, or it doesn't really matter, man or woman or any color. It doesn't matter. Everything starts somewhere, and it always starts from the people. Because, I mean, we, as a society, we also shift the same society we live in. Same with the money. Yeah, more we talk, probably it will take some time. But again, it's a lot about what part of community you are, or what community you're part of. Right? Because if you're part of the investors community, of course they share. Yeah. And they might not share the way that is how much I make, because usually rich people, upper middle class people, they usually don't share how much they make, but they usually measure capital. That's why you have Forbes. You don't say salaries in the Forbes, you say capital, right? So they usually people discuss this is the capital I'm operating, and that's how much I'm distributing that, because partially this part of my capital is in stocks, that part isn't there, this is the real estate, this is this. And again, there is nothing wrong to share it. Might not be saying the exact numbers, but if you see the very successful guy invests specifically, let's say many people, they invest into cryptocurrency. You might not do the same, but you're like, maybe it's not as because many people, it's like a lottery, and you're like, maybe it's not, if this guy is saying that, and again, it shifts your mind, watchfulness. You're like, he said that, and this one said this, and this one said that. Let me see, let me try, let me touch, and more we talk, more we know, and more we know, more literate we are. I don't want to say more smart, but it's not really correlated, but intelligent we are, and we make better decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so Elena, it was very great pleasure to have you on another talk, another episode. And like you said, so let's try the changes, and this is what we need these days. And like you said, the very difficult part is to start. Once you start doing it, the other elements coming to the game. And like you said, even though it's not a big thing to share, because you are sharing the concept basically, which you can implement. It's really up to you how you want to deal with that.
Yeah,
it was great, really great pleasure, Elena, to have you here. Do you have anything which you want to mention, like upcoming stuff, because I know you are very creative, you are very busy with your new products.
I'm thinking to start to have some offline sessions, and something related to maybe investment branches or something, actually for the same reason. I was thinking it would be nice that we gather and share. And I'm thinking even to do it like for free, we just gather and, pay for our coffees. But because again, it's so important to be part of the community. So far, of course, in Prague, but it would be nice to then somehow, go a little further. Because if, again, I have a group of people whom I trust, and I don't feel embarrassed to ask actually how much is the range I might consider if I move to that position, or how much is your I don't know, what is your capital distribution, for example. And more we share, of course, more we know. So that's why I was thinking that it might be nice to have those offline gatherings, especially now as everyone kind of happy to be out and to see people again. And that is in my list, and I'm thinking to start with that, and then I'll see how it goes. If it stays with the same smaller community, or we have more people coming, in this case, maybe we can then have a topic, and someone will be covering the topic. It could be, let's say, if there is someone who is good in crypto, they might cover crypto, or someone who is good in, I don't know, some specific things like insurances, which, for example, for me is a little bit not something which I'm interested in that, but it's good to know what exists on the market. So I was thinking that we might create out of this, I wouldn't call it conferences, but kind of gathering with a speaker. That would be also very nice. And then who knows where it brings us.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, finger crossed then. So it's good to start, and it's good to spread the information and be brighter and bolder in that arena.
Now, because we could see what's going on the markets, we need to see that, all the theories which we have and which definitely work, because we could see the main diversification now works the best than probably before. We're in a real interesting times from this perspective, and it's good to share, because some people, they just know very theory and they act accordingly, but sometimes you need to start driving not only on autopilot, but to have a bit of manual driving in there. Like right now, you could see that inflation is there, or there is a shortage expected on certain commodities, and you're like, but what do I do about it, right? What do I do? Again, YouTube is your new university. And again, don't trust everything you see there, and make sure you're listening to the qualified people. But it's also a good place to research. Of course, all financial coaches or advisors and people like that, better ask before you do stupid stuff. And also, it's important to have a bit of guidance. For example, with some of my clients, they're my old clients already. They just told me, hey, look, can I have just checkup session, like, I don't know, twice a week? Can I send you what I'm thinking to buy? You just share with me. So we're not having really the learning sessions anymore, but she just usually sends me this, what do you think? And I'm looking what is there, and I'm just sharing my opinion. Of course, I'm not the one. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in a year or two, but there is some sort of common sense. And now I think it's so important to be driven by your common sense on top of the theories, because if you see there is expected shortage of the commodities, you might think to invest into those commodities, right? Or if you see the inflation is much higher than we used to have, you might think about what to do about that, even though the original official theory says that distribution should be like this and like that. And so it's so good to have someone next to you, either your coach or your friend or your parent, doesn't matter, who understands a bit or have a feeling of the market. And you might ask, or you at least might brainstorm, but that's what I do sometimes with my friend. We just brainstorm. We're like, look, this is the situation, what do you think? And we ask each other those kind of coaching questions, which are different from that you make person think. You just ask the question, but you don't answer them, right? You just make the one think about career, about the relationship, about the money, and you're like, I'm thinking what to do, and you try to coach each other with those very this is a coaching technique, but you can Google that. It's very easy to make the other one think what are the resources and what are the goals and what are the opportunities there.
Awesome. Thank you, Elena, very much. I think we will also do another series next time.
I'm always open to share. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kornelia. Pleasure as always. And then see you in the volume 3 one day.
Yeah, exactly. We will be approaching volume 3. Thank you, and talk to you
so much. Bye.
If you enjoyed the content of this video, click the subscribe button so you can receive more content like this every week. If you want to keep developing yourself, check my recommended videos